Good to be back with you once again on this edition of the India Development Debate, and it's time to put the spotlight to where it really belongs. What is the condition of our jobs? India could well be the youngest nation in the world by 2030, but what is the picture as far as India's jobs front is concerned? And for discussing that, I have got none other than Mahesh Vyas, MD and CEO of CMIE, right here with us, and the latest data that's out is very discomforting. Thank you very much, Mahesh, for being with us. India's unemployment did rise to a 2-year high in the month of February. We had seen a consistent rise from December, which was at 7, then January 7.1, and now 7.2. Which are the factors you believe has impacted this, and how much of the blame, lies with demonetization and GST? How much of an impact has that had, and how much does it continue to haunt the Indian economy?
I think the demonetization and GST effect is still lingering. They certainly did have a big role to play in the fall in employment in 2018. The long-term problem, though, is the steady fall in the investment rate. So I think till investments don't pick up, jobs will not pick up. Currently, we are seeing that public and private sector investments both have slowed down very substantially. CMI's CapEx database, which tracks new investment proposals, has seen a very sharp fall in new investment proposals, and most of them are extremely poor in quality. They are not the type that actually generate a lot of jobs. So there is a problem on the investment front. On top of that, we have the impact of demonetization and GST, which continues to linger, and that's what is the reason for the steady increase in the unemployment rate.
Okay, fair point indeed, and I appreciate the fact that you're at least referring to investments and how that has been a cause of concern. But two questions there, and a follow-up from what you said, GST and demonetization. How much more time before the Indian economy can wane and wean off the impact of demonetization and the GST pain? And also, if you marry the macro data with what you're saying, private investments, what sort of a picture is emerging? Because Q3 GDP at 6.6% is a very uncomfortable position. Investment data is not going to pick up if you look at the macro picture there. How do you believe, in fact, what do you believe is the way forward as far as the jobs front is concerned?
You asked two questions. One is, how much more time will it take before the impact of GST and demonetization wanes away? And I think that is actually turning out to be a much bigger problem than one had anticipated earlier, because a large part of the smaller enterprises seem to have been hit so badly that they are almost demolished. And it takes a long time before that demolition is replaced with new enterprise. A large part of the employment was in these smaller scale units, not in the larger scale units. And while a large part of the market share of the lost small scale units has been taken over by the larger units, the loss in employment is still very substantial. So there is likely a structural change that has happened in favor of larger units, which employ lesser people, which have higher automation. So I think it will take a very long time before the impact of GST and demonetization on jobs is repaired. The second problem you said is whether growth is picking up, when will investments come up? I think that is where the solution lies, that investments should pick up in medium and large scale companies, and that is possible. The first thing we should do is to ensure that there are no more shocks. Shocks of the kind of GST and demonetization are of a nature that can keep a long-term impact. It's important that we do not see any more shocks, for example. Then we require to have a new government that brings in reposes greater faith in private enterprise to invest and create larger, better jobs for the growing labor force of India.
Okay, I agree with you on most points, and just to take a cue from the growing labor force of India, which essentially means there's been a substantial increase in the number of job seekers. But why is it that the labor force participation, the labor participation rate has gone down? What explains that?
This is a more serious problem. The fall in the labor participation rate is certainly a lot more distressing. Why are these people not seeking jobs? Why is this problem kind of growing so much? The reason is that for a very long time, jobs have been very scarce. Good jobs have been even more scarcer. Therefore, people have got discouraged. So we are seeing probably a very sharp increase in discouraged unemployment, which is those people who are trying to find a job, do not find a job now, and go away from the labor market saying there are no jobs over here, there's no point in saying that I'm looking for one. That is the distressful part, and this is a phenomena which is essentially in urban India and largely in the educated people. So if you're in rural India, your sources of income are so limited that you're willing to take up any job, even if it is at very low wage rates. But when it comes to urban India, the people over here are better educated. They are looking for, therefore, correspondingly better jobs. If they don't find it, they're willing to wait it out.
Okay, but you know, the other question, Mahesh Vyas, is that is it simply a question of no jobs like you're alluding, or is it also a question of not enough gainful employment, you know, not enough jobs for the kind of skills people may have, and which is what disguised employment and all of that is, and you know, that feeds into unemployment data to begin with?
It is a case of no jobs. It's a case of lack of appropriate jobs. Unemployment is many a times understood to be a phenomenon of the educated people. If you are not educated, if you don't have much choice, then you are poor and you are forced to take up whatever jobs are available to you. But the relatively more educated people, the relatively more better off people, will actually look only for decent jobs. So if you don't get gainful employment, if you don't get useful jobs, then obviously these people are not going to be willing to take up the jobs. And the reason for this is that one does notice that transfer payments from the government in the form of pensions, in the form of other doles being given out to households, as well as income earned through capital is supporting many of the households, and wages is playing a smaller role. If this is the case, then the youngsters will be more than willing to wait for a longer time to find a decent job than take a job that is lesser than their expectations compared to their education.
You know, just to be the devil's advocate for a minute, whether it is the Prime Minister's office or the PM himself, or you know, some of his senior advisors and economists have all quoted the EPFO data to sort of negate the unemployment data. If we take the EPFO number, there doesn't seem to be a problem and we seem to be just doing fine. But what is your take? Is this becoming more of a data debate than what really should have been an unemployment data debate?
2 points you made. One is about the EPFO and one about whether this is a jobs debate or a data debate. The first thing, EPFO, NPS, etc. are indicators of formalization of jobs. They are certainly not an indicator of job creation. Job creation is a small part of EPFO, but a fairly large part is the movement of people from informal jobs to formal jobs. And this has been written and discussed ad nauseum amongst people who know this. Even the chief statistician of India has gone on record to say that EPFO enrollments do not necessarily signify an increase in jobs. So I think we are being misled if you are being told that, look, EPFO registrations are increasing and therefore jobs are increasing. This problem being turned into a debate over data is extremely unfortunate. I think it is the problem of jobs in India is serious. It is an important thing. We should pay more attention to this than to trivialize it. It is important to put our heads together to find the strategies of ensuring that our youth do get gainful employment. We have a demographic dividend yet for another 10-15 years. If we continue debating the way we are, we will have lost a really golden opportunity of growing at a faster pace.
Okay, but you know, the other thing, and I want to specifically point this out because a lot of people turn around and say that what your report doesn't seem to be taking into account is people who are employed in other services. I mean, the guys who work for an Ola or an Uber or a Swiggy or Zomato, Flipkart, Amazon deliveries. Are we missing out on counting them?
Not at all. We are not missing them. Any claim being made that Swiggy delivery boys are being missed or Ola drivers is being missed is clear lack of understanding of how these numbers are calculated, or this is a deliberate attempt to skew the discussions. Ola drivers or people who are frying pakoras on the streets or people who are delivering food to your homes also live in households. And the estimates made by the NSSO and by CMIE are both based on household surveys. If those Ola drivers are living in households, we are covering them. So unless these people are living on trees, we are not missing anyone.
That's a very valid point, because I think the only point that keeps coming across and being thrown back to you is that we're not counting some of these new age guys. But a last question before I let you go, Mahesh. And, you know, one of the things that's been spoken about, at least in a run-up to elections, is this minimum income guarantee. I think the Congress is trying to champion this one. While joblessness is a big issue, is this also an admission on the political front that we have failed to create the jobs? We may well have the largest number of people who need to be employed, but we need something like this, because that sort of job creation is not going to be possible. Is this also an admission on that front?
You made a very important observation over there, and I think this is a point that should be debated on a larger scale in the country. That the guaranteeing of some minimum income support kind of transfer to households is actually an admission of the fact that we have failed to create jobs, and we do not have hopes of creating jobs for the people. I do sincerely hope that this is not true, in the sense that I hope that these are only temporary arrangements that we need to make till we find solutions to job creation. There is a problem, like I mentioned earlier, that transfers to households are dissuading people from coming to the labor markets. If we give them handouts at their home, we will not find people coming to work at all. That's going to be disastrous for a young country, young in the sense that we have got a bulge in young people in the country. We should not be actually giving these supports to the households. We should be motivating them to come out and work and prosper through actual gainful employment.
All right. On that note, thank you very, very much for joining us in this edition of the India Development Debate Direct. It's an important discussion to have on jobs, so thanks very much for being with us. Really appreciate you taking time and talking to us. We take a quick breather, but there's plenty more that's coming up right here on ET Now, including Top 10 at 10.